Yeah, honestly, racing, didn't ever think I'd be racing in a mixed division. And honestly, it was great. I think because both Chris and I had great swim run basics of how our transition worked, what swimming Heather looked like, we were able to kind of gel together and communicate, okay, this is what I know is going to be important for me. What's going to be important for you? What reminders are you going to need? So figuring out those small things definitely helps in the long run. So I'm very glad to partner with Chris. It was a great time. And I'll keep saying that because it really was. It wasn't stressful at all. I wasn't worried about it, having zero expectation going in. And it was a great first and last swim run of the year.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris. This is episode 253 of the show. We've got a great one for everyone this week. We're fresh off the heels of the 5th edition of ÖTILLÖ Swimrun Austin, and it was an awesome weekend all around. With Chipper being on the DL, I ended up racing in the World Series distance in the mixed division with Mroz of Team Monkeyz, Monkey Run, and she joins us to talk about how it went for Team Low Tide Monkeyz on race day. Spoiler alert, if I can speak for you, Viv, I thought we had a ton of fun. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. I missed y'all. Long time no see. Yeah, no, it was a fun day.
Yeah.
I thoroughly had. I mean, Chipper, you got a great partner. So 10 out of 10 would recommend.
That I already realized. Awesome. But yeah, I think it all, Chris was very uncertain about racing solo, racing with a partner. Some things fell through. But I think first, let's start. Obviously, Viv, this is your 3rd or 4th time on the show. Done ÖTILLÖ, the World Series Championship. Very experienced. You know what you're doing on the swim run side of things. But what have you been up to this year? I know sometimes life happens to you. You don't get in as many swim runs as you normally want. But how did your year leading up to Austin look?
Oh, man. Yeah, life happened. A few job things got switched around, so I ended up moving. And, with that comes just craziness. So I was able to get some running races earlier on in the year. I got 2 marathons, the one I Boston qualified on. It was exciting, but unfortunately, because Boston is so competitive nowadays, you're supposed to run faster and faster. I didn't make it this year, but I'm going to achieve it next year, hopefully. But that kind of was able to get me to the running shape for Austin, and swimming kind of fell on the back burner. But Chris did a great job leading the swims, honestly. So besides that, running shape, I can confidently be like, yes, I could do this because I had a great base from the beginning of the year. Swimming, I was a little up in the air. But yeah, the year so far.
No worries, yeah, that's awesome. So strong on the running front. What was kind of, you had entered Austin, did you have a partner locked down or you're just going to do it solo? Kind of, what was your expectations entering the weekend? Because this match of the Low Tide Monkeyz didn't happen until literally the day before.
It was a shakeout. It was the shakeout, yeah.
It was really a shakeout. Yeah, I got a text from Sarah. Unfortunately, she wasn't going to make it due to some other life thing happening. So she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I didn't know if I was going to race with a partner and just find somebody or race solo. But either way, it was going to be an adventure. And we're at the shakeout and we're chit-chatting. And I find out that, Chipper, you're not racing at all. And Chris is, well, do you want to do it later? And I was like, actually, sure, why not? It'd be fun. I've never raced with anybody besides Sarah. And I don't know, Chris, have you raced with anybody besides Chipper?
No. So this was my first time racing with someone else. Certainly, in a race setting, I did do a virtual swim run with the mutual friend of Chipper and mine. We were team untethered, but this was a 45-minute kind of random, just you had to just clock some swim running activity. So I wouldn't think of it as a race. And yeah, going into the weekend, I was planning on racing with a good friend of ours, Bill from San Diego. He ended up not being able to come. So heading into the weekend, I'm like, well, I guess I'm racing solo, which is fine. I've never done that before either. And that's kind of where my mind was until, ran into you at the shakeout. I think, we were talking with Kate and you guys were, I was like, oh, you don't have a partner? I'm like, me neither. And then it seemed, I don't know, what was it about our conversation? I mean, we've always gotten along and, we're pals and stuff. But I was like, hey, what do you think? And yeah, I think you like thought about it for maybe 5 seconds or something. And it was pretty quick. It was like, yeah, sure. And one thing I'll say, Viv, is, in the from the time that we decided we were going to race together to now, I feel like I've had a lot of, quote, swim run growth on a couple levels. One, and I was telling this to Chipper, when I was giving him his private race report, was that, Chipper and I, we've done like literally 20 races together. And, racing with someone else for the first time, I actually felt like it was like a leveling up, and I think if we were to ask someone like Desiree or Sabina, is there a huge advantage in racing with other people so you can learn about yourself as a swim runner? I'm totally confident they would say yes. By racing with different partners, you actually like learn a lot about your own swim run abilities and how to get into the race report and all that. I went into it with kind of just like a real open mind, not really knowing what to expect. I kind of went into it as, hey, let's just go have fun. Certainly wasn't thinking about a podium or anything like that. It was more about, okay, let's experience this course together. A course that I'm super familiar with because I've done the race every single year with someone who I hadn't swum run before, but who I knew had the chops, right? And I will say one other thing was that, as the race went on, I just need to give you a bunch of props. I just kept thinking, man, Viv, like, she's a pro. I was like, she is such a good swim runner. Like, the technique of swim run, it was so fun racing with you because like you just knew what you were doing, which was cool to see, right? It was cool to see like no, for sure. But it was like, like the swim run business of it, like, as the race was going on, it was becoming really clear to me just like how much you love swim run and how much like this is just a great sport for you, as I think it's a great sport for me. And as we were moving through the course, I just kept getting like more appreciation for your swim running abilities, and just by the end I was like, this was like such a fun experience. So maybe that's burying the lead a little bit, but yeah, going into it, I would just try to be super open-minded. And I'm curious, because we really didn't chat that much. We're like, yeah, we can tether. And then I didn't even have your cell phone. So I'm DMing you and I was like, oh, by the way, we should just text. And then we kind of met up the next morning. But I'm curious, kind of like racing with a new partner, where were you? What was your heads? How were you kind of thinking about it? What headspace were you in?
Oh, I mean, I don't even think either of us had a tether. We actually ended up borrowing somebody else's tether because both of I don't know, I know you and Chipper normally race untethered on most races, but I was like, oh, I feel like the cure with a tether. So Amy ended up being like, and we're like, cool, let's see how this length works. But we made it work, and it was, I came into it and I was like, well, I have no idea what's gonna happen. I was like, well, I know you guys are beat on the course. So I'm like, I'm a little nervous because my swimming is not up to par. You guys are like water guppies too. So I was like, oh man, I'm going to be, God help me, please. So everyone's like, you're going to be fine. And I was like, okay, it's going to be great. I'm just going to pace off of what he's done, and then we'll ease into it. And that's exactly like kind of what happened. And it was great. Like, honestly, like my having zero expectations going into a race, kind of just relaxing and like, it's going to be a party. Not only is Austin always a party, this race, you come in whatever shape and you're just, you're going to have fun on the course. Because it's kind of like this weird, I was telling you during the race, I was like, I'm pretty sure I blacked out this race last year. Because there are some parts where I was like, this definitely further along than the other part. And this, I'm sure this one was for the last swim. So kind of going through it again and actually being like, oh no, I know exactly where we are in the course was really nice. But having that zero expectations and just knowing it was going to be a great time, was all I could ask for. So it was a good time.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I think going into the race, we were both, I felt like we were both being really calm about it. We sort of were figuring out our strategy on the first
we're cool,
run,
we're
hanging out with.
I'm not nervous.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's sort out the tether, and then it's like on the first, on the first swim, it's like, okay, we need to stop. Just let me know. We'll sort out the length and all that stuff. And just like that first one was really like, okay, here's our plan to kind of open this up. But I think before that, this past weekend was the biggest race they've had. So they had the most participants, which is really great. The vibe was awesome. Chipper was running comms. So Chipper, I'm curious, like from your side as like being a content creator, extraordinaire. Which, by the way, everyone who's watched all the videos, if you haven't seen them, check them out on the Low Tide Boyz Instagram. Like, you really felt like you were there. Viv, I don't know if you saw them after the fact, but the videos were great. Chipper was great.
Oh
so
my
Chipper,
gosh.
from your side of things, like, how did you see the weekend?
Yeah, it was fun to experience in a different way, but it's still, I think I was able to keep myself pretty busy on that. And I was having fun highlighting the different parts of the race to the audience that we have on the Low Tide Boyz feed, and working with some of the ÖTILLÖ crew on that, and really kind of try to give the Oscar Olsen play-by-play a little bit, give people a walkthrough on everything. But yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be at 4 or 5 different locations throughout the 3-hour portion of the race, and literally seeing nothing but smiles and people having a great time out there, no matter if it was at the first or second swim exit, or it was that last run, climbing up out of the after the long swim up the rocks. Like, people still happy, having a good time, and just being grateful that they could go out there and enjoy the day, which, I think is really what we find really magical about the sport. And I really liked how you both touched on your mindset on just being very open to anything and kind of really going with the flow. I think that really set you all up for success in terms of the day, not necessarily to the performance outcome, but how the day went on, how you two were going to sort of get along with each other. But as it was your first sort of meeting, Viv, what were some things that you kind of wanted to like check off with your new partner? Oh, who's leading the, I hear Chris, you lead the swims, the run, who's holding the tether? What was your kind of checklist of things that you wanted to get alignment on before the gun shot off?
Oh, yeah. It was super last minute. I mean, I was like, I'm just going to play this super cool. Don't need to text him that much. Don't need to bug him. We'll figure it out in the morning. And we certainly did. I mean, it was essentially, I was like, I think Chris is just like, I'll lead the swim. And then I think it was just a natural progression where like I took over the run to pace the runs. So it wasn't like, there wasn't like a lot of conversation besides, hey, here's our tether line. Here's how long it should be. Like Andy was super helpful with that. I think it was like, it's like the Swedes say, take your average height of both you and your partner and you have a tether. I was like, all right, well, maybe that's right. We'll see. But Chris hopped in, let the swim as soon as I was in charge of the tether, just attacking it right behind him. And then as soon as we were ready, we were both like, ready, let's go. And it was, I think because we had so much experience collectively, it just kind of, we both knew what needed to be done. It's from the transition. Hey, we're coming up on the swim. Got our tap on, goggles on. Okay, we have our paddles. Buoys are undone. Okay, let's get together. So I think that helped a ton, just working with another partner. Yeah, no, it was definitely super cool, for chill. I was like, all right, we're just going to figure this out on the fly. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think you have the luxury of really banking on all the experience that you have both collectively on just, hey, well, we have the right mindset, check. We have the basics, who's leading, who's on the tether, and then we have the, we'll go with the flow, we'll adjust on the course for things, and that seemed to be a good formula for you all. And I guess it makes sense. That's sort of our recommendation for how to approach these things on a regular basis, just from what we've seen. So glad to know the advice we give is applicable for brand new partner situations or long-standing folks. But
we're like smoking our own supply in terms of advice.
Yeah. Hey, that's what we're supposed to do. The day was a little bit warmer and humid compared to what we were normally used to in Austin. But yeah, let's get started to sort of, I guess, kind of the race report. Viv, Chris, and I take it upon myself to try to rein Chris in. Sometimes he can get a little excited off the front to start the race. How did that first run go? It's about 2 miles or so to that first swim. Was he Seabiscuit out there, and how did you, or were you the one off the front?
No, I think it was a little bit even. Like we were just like, okay, you're going this pace, we're going this pace. So we kind of just settled together. It was that unspoken, like, okay, this is where we're at. We could stay right behind these certain teams, so we'll be good. A little plug, like I think I asked him, I was like, oh, like I remember listening to your guys' podcast. I was like, do you run hot? Does Chipper run hot? And like, what do you guys use for that? I think we're like discussing that on the first run because we knew that it was going to be a warmer rate. And like, how often, okay, do I remind you to eat? You remind me to eat or drink or whatnot. So figuring those out, I think helps. Like, no, Chris, you paced well. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we used that first run. Yeah, and I think we were very measured. I think the first run was really kind of talking through our tactics and kind of easing into it. I mean, we did a shakeout run before, and I was already getting sweaty, and I was like, oh, gee, it's going to be one of those days.
It'll be warm.
But we shared what each other's nutrition plan was going to be and hydration plan. I knew that you were going to try to take something every 30 minutes. I was going to try to take something every 20 minutes, and I was going to stop at all the aid stations to fill up a cup. I knew that you had a flask. So we were kind of using that first run. We were running behind Mara and Andy, the father. For that first one, we're just like chatting it up and just kind of just kind of easing into it. Interestingly, though, I've never led every single swim of a swim run because I usually just let Chipper do it. And I will say, we'll save it for sort of final thoughts. But one thing I want to foreshadow is just like how I feel I leveled up as a swim runner just from leading all the swims. And I felt like I learned that anyway, I'll talk about it later, but we'll talk about the 2 ways that I think I leveled up towards the end. But yeah, going into that first swim, I think we're being really smart. We're just communicating. We're going to try the tether. And again, I remember telling you, it's like, hey, you need to stop on this one, like whatever, like, no pressure of any kind. Like, we need to sort out the tether. Let's do it on the first swim. Yeah, that first swim felt real nice. The water level was higher than in years past. So there was less of sort of the weird kind of underwater ferns and kind of like funny business that was underneath. But that swim was uneventful, except for the fact that I'm like, damn, I got to lead like 6 more of these things. And what I try to do, and, another thing that happened throughout the race, I just kept getting like a bunch of gratitude for Chipper for always kind of doing like the yeoman's work of leading all the swims because I think, in swim running, and Viv, I'm curious if you co-sign on this, you have to pay attention, right? And let's say if it's between 1 and 5, 5 being like complete focus and 1 being like making sure you're swimming, going in the right direction. When you're leading the swim, you're probably within a 3 and a 5 in terms of focus. But if you're in the back, it's probably closer to 1 or 2. So just being able to unload sort of the mental energy required to focus, it's something that I kind of took for granted. That Chipper would just like, here, you just go do it, dude. Lead the swim, do whatever you need to do. I'll bark instructions if I think something's going terribly wrong. But otherwise, the person leading is sort of responsible making sure we're going straight. So I took that upon myself to be like, all right, the best I can do here is just swim as straight as possible, hug the line, like no funny business. And I think like right from the first swim, like that was kind of my mindset is, let's not make these any longer than they need to be.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing we talked about was going into that first swim, I was going to start kind of steady and kind of build from there just to make sure that I wasn't like, pulling you too much or doing anything really crazy because, it's not good for the team if the speed is uncomfortable. But after that first swim, I think we got out and we were like, okay, that seemed to go okay.
Yeah, no, it definitely.
I don't know
like,
if that's how you felt.
No, you had a good pace. I think so. I noticed when you swim, like leading the swims, I've always led the swim. Sarah led a few every once in a while, but that mental energy of like, okay, my paddles need to go. I don't know if this is like a tip or trick, but like I do field goals. So I like will look at the target where we need to get out the exit and I'll just field goal and like where my paddles go. So I'm like, okay, swing wide either way. And so taking that mental relaxation in the back it was definitely like something where I was like, oh, bitches, Sarah field like every time we swim. Like,
chilling.
It was not, it was wild. It was nice. Chilling. So chill.
It's relaxing back here.
Great.
So comfortable.
I caught a drowse. It was awesome.
It was the best. I will say though, getting out of that first swim, when we stood up, I was like, man, like, that was a lot of work. My heart rate was up and it was already pretty warm. And I will say basically from that point, I was kind of feeling like sluggish on the run because I just felt like it was just hot. Like I felt like my head was swelling at some point. But yeah, like going to run 2 where we kind of like run through the Girl Scout camp and the ropes course and all this stuff. I think even there we're being pretty measured. And already we already started doing the thing where we were sort of jockeying back and forth with teams. Like we passed a bunch of teams in the water, they'd pass us on the run, and we were just kind of doing that, which is it's such a funny. It just seems to happen in swim runs a lot, right? Where it's like, you know, you kind of equalize into this weird cadence. But yeah, that second run was fine. Going into the third swim again, just trying to be really, really smart and tactical. I don't know if there was anything that jumped out to you, but I felt like from, you know, what I always feel much better about a swim run once I've done like a couple transitions and there's, oh yes, I remember how to do this thing. I don't know if that's how you felt, like as the race progressed, like just start feeling like a little bit more comfortable with like the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we got into a rhythm of, okay, first chances we're like, okay, I know what I need to do. You know what you need to do. How can we do this together? And I think by like the third swim, we were like, all right, goggles, everything on. We need to slow down. We need to go faster. And I think we just got a rhythm after that. And I mean, it takes, definitely the couples to remember like, oh, no, I actually, muscle memory. We're good. Okay. So
yeah, so one thing we did tactically was that I had Viv kind of lead the runs. I'm like, you just set the pace, you know, you just control the pace on the runs, and you know, let's just keep moving through this stuff. And I, like I said earlier, as we were moving through the race, like my appreciation for you as a swim runner kept growing, because I just kept thinking, just like she totally, I mean, she's such a good swim runner. You know, like this is so fun. It's like, you know, like we don't have to communicate about, oh, what do I do with my paddle? You know, it's like we both had our own strategies, but we managed to come together to move together. And it was like I said earlier as well, like I saw that as like as a value add on the experience. Because, okay, here's how an experienced swim runner who I respect, you know, hones her craft or practices her craft, which, you know, might be a little bit different, you know, and all this stuff. But just seeing like experiencing the race with a new partner for me was really eye-opening, and like I said, I feel like it was like a level up. But yeah, so basically all the runs were kind of uneventful. We kept going back and forth. The third swim was the super long one, which I think Chipper remind me, it's like a mile, a little bit less than a mile.
Yeah, 1,400 or something. It's kind of popping up in my head, but
and that one was like into the current, and there was a headwind.
Yeah.
So that one in particular, like, you know, we were really messing around. We weren't dogging in and out. Like we get to the transition, we would keep moving. I don't think there was any transition where we're like, hey, hold on a sec, I gotta like do something. Like we're both pretty on top of that. So that swim, I just try to hug the line really, really tight, stay sort of away from the big currents. And I remember asking you after that swim, Viv, is like, are we getting, because I try to be really steady with the pace, but it seemed like we would start with teams. Like teams will be ahead of us and we catch them. And I was like, are we getting faster or are they getting slower? It was just it was a little disorienting because, you know, it was just like, I didn't think I'd see these people again. And then they pass us after, you know, after the swim. And it was just like, I thought they were like far gone. So it was interesting how, you know, just pacing was a little bit hard to judge in that swim because of the current.
Yeah, that was, I think, probably the toughest one, because I definitely saw a few teams in front of us, like crisscrossing in front of us. And I was like, one, I know there's like 2 teams in front of theirs. There's at least 2 tethers that we could run into. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to follow Chris's line. But I'm looking up and I'm like, all right, like, well, that way. But Chris doesn't know what he's doing. So definitely just trusted you on that. And I think toward the end, like when you go into the cove a little bit. And that one, I think like we felt fast at the end because we weren't fighting anything anymore. And so that one was a great, I think, a good finish. We were able to like kind of ease our way up that cliff, which I think was like the best way to do it. And all the brush, it was so overgrown. I think there's like Aaron was like, did you just say you feel like Hobbit? I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the Hobbit movies, like going through like little caves and, but that was a tough one. But like, again, like, I'll echo it. You did an amazing job with pacing and on the swims, just consistently maintaining a pace. And it helped me behind you because you would twist a little bit. So if I got off on stroke, I would hit your shoes. So I was like, okay, I just need to maintain his pace, which honestly, I think like with that has made me a stronger swimmer. And knowing that because you had such a good pace, like I think that muscle memory is going to help me down the line because that was such a good, like strong, like it wasn't fast. It wasn't like, it was steady and it was perfect for what we needed that day.
Well, that's all I had to offer. So I'm glad it worked. I will say after that swim, like coming out, I was like, man, there were many periods where I was like channeling Chipper. I'm sure his ears were burning where I was like, damn, like now I know what I've done to Chipper for a bunch of races where he'll just lead a swim and I'll be like, let's go, Haas. And he'll be like,
yeah,
okay, all right, here we go. Yeah. So I feel, you know, my sort of swim run IQ was really just, I was leveling up like during the race, just getting a new appreciation, kind of seeing things from a different perspective, still swim running well, learning from you, like how disciplined you were about just sipping on the water. Yeah. So Chipper, Viv had a flask that was pre-filled with element. By the end, it was just like, I don't even know. It was like flop. It was like water, like hose water, PFH.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit of
everything.
It was a little bit of everything.
It was like jumbo juice.
Yeah, like electrolyte jungle juice.
Oof.
Yeah, but she's being super diligent about it. But honestly, that next run, which is sort of the second long run, I was feeling like super sluggish. Like I felt like just the heat was kind of getting to me. And even though we were swim running and it was overcast, like it was still, I don't know if it was the heat or the humidity. Because
it was really muggy.
Like,
very
like
muggy.
90, 100% humidity or like 99% humidity. But yeah, it was, and that's where we saw a bunch of other teams, which is that part of the course I always find fun because they got that little out and back.
Yeah.
We saw a bunch of folks, and you know, Viv was doing a great job running comms, and she was in the front, just you know, hyping everyone up and stuff, which is great.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
nice.
I can ask Sarah too. I literally will sing, scream. Probably you can hear me covering from a mile away. That's the joke that everybody has is, oh, you can hear Veg on the course. But seeing other teams, like the first timers, you can see if they're confused because it is an out and back, and you're seeing people come back and they're like, you're like, no, it's okay. Just keep going, and then you'll return. It's okay. You're going the right way. But I definitely confuse a lot of people. But it's so fun seeing other teams because you're cheering each other on. Like you're all miserable together. You're all like, that's just fine. We're fine. But you're doing it together. And that's honestly, I think, what makes Austin a party is because you get to see so many things.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And then I guess it's a question to both of you. So Chris has shared a little bit about, you know, some things that you brought to the table. Viv, was there anything that Chris did that you're like, ooh, I think I might want to try to incorporate this, or in future swim runs, or little nuggets of knowledge that you were able to capture in this net new experience for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, so the pacing on swimming is like having that perspective definitely helped me now, like with the leading the swim with Sarah or whoever else I might partner up with in the future. And then making sure I was eating properly or just fueling myself. Because Chris was like, okay, we're going to stop at every station. And I was like, okay, but I'm glad we did because I was able to then grab a cookie or a gel and shove that down my throat with some water and then refill my flask. So stopping at every aid station was efficient. It wasn't like, oh, maybe we're going to wait here for 2 minutes, digest our water. It was, we're going to be efficient. And Chris is really good at that, being like, okay, what do I need when I get to an aid station? So having that perspective. And then also far away, like Chris works as a mindset coach, and there's like a whole other thing, can probably butcher your job. But talking to him about that on the course definitely helped because I like to think that I have a great positive mindset, but then talking about his work and what he does just offered a completely different perspective on how to do life in general, but also racing. If you're going to go into a race, you want to have a good mindset no matter how you feel. And depending on your partner, I don't know, Chip, are you racing with Chris? Like, one of you are going to have an off day. It's like a miracle if both of you have a great day. As that is, you should buy a lottery ticket. But with all the races Sarah and I have done, like, one of us is either really good, one of us is like really bad. It's like mixed and mixed bag, but we work together to really lift each other up. And that's what I think makes it successful. Even if you do these races solo, you still kind of have a battle buddy within the other racers. But talking to Chris about that mindset stuff, like, definitely, like, opened my eyes. Like, I see it. So that was helpful.
You know, and so what I'll add too is, like, I definitely felt like I felt super sluggish on the runs, and you know, I was communicating as a good partner should, right? I was like, oh, my heart rate is kind of elevated, like, I'm not sure what's going on. You know, I had to basically took like 2 30-second walk breaks at some point just to kind of clear, get back
some
down
headroom
to
in the
zone
heart rate,
2.5 or something, you know,
some air.
But I think even as to that, like, we're communicating really well, we're supporting each other, and I think that's where sort of the experience of racing with an experienced swimrunner was helpful, because it was like, you've been there, right? We've all been there at some point. So it was just like, instead of getting down on the person, it's like, okay, what do you need? Have you drank? Have you eaten? Like, let's like try to problem solve this. So I think like that, doing that with someone who I haven't raced before was both super pleasant and at the same time really not surprising, because swimrun is just like the greatest sport in the world, obviously. And to do it with someone who I haven't raced before. I mean, we haven't really done it. I mean, we've done races together, but we've never chopped it up or anything like that. So it was really fun to just like essentially be on this journey of discovery, with another swimmer, right? So we finished the second long run. We do a short swim, where you kind of like rock climb up. Chipper, we saw you there, and then we do the run to the cliff jump area, which I guess you could have cliff jumped, but
I don't know.
No one seemed to be doing it. I don't know if they said no.
It's a little
there wasn't a camera there.
Yeah,
it wasn't a camera there. And then we did the penultimate swim, just like straight across this little cove to the last long run. And that run I thought was fun. I think by that point, I already, I knew about your boyfriend. Like, had all these stories. I knew how long you've been doing. I knew what your job entailed. We covered like a lot of topics. I was telling you about, my coaching practice. We were by that point, I think, we were pretty well greased in terms of like storytelling and stuff like that, which is also fun because it just helps the time go by. And, certainly when Chipper and I race, it's just like a constant, banter. Unless it gets serious or something, but usually there's a content, there's banter. So even that I found just super fun to be like, hey, I'm doing this with someone who I feel like I know you so much better now after doing a race, but after doing a race together. But at the time it was like, yeah, I mean, we're acquaintances. We've interviewed her for the show. I mean, she's got the vibe, right? But it's to actually have 3.5 hours of spending time together and having conversation was super fun and helped the time go by. Again, especially when I was feeling kind of sluggish, just because I was just like hot and just like uncomfortable. But we make it. We do that last run. We make it to the last swim, and by that point, I'm starting to my dogs are barking, my battery's going on low, and you were super supportive. You're like just got one swim to go. You got this. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. You certainly didn't offer to lead the swim, but that's fine. But yeah, and that's what I tell Chipper. I'm like, it's the last swim, dude.
You're awesome.
You're
good.
Blow it up.
It's okay.
So I definitely felt like I was getting what I usually give, which was kind of funny in the moment. But yeah, finish that last swim, which past a bunch of teams. I think at that point we're coming up a lot on a lot of the shorter course, like the experiences, not experience, just the sprint teams. Yeah. I think the experience have a different course, and finished that and saw Chipper, who came down and videotape us basically going on the finish line, which is pretty fun. I was actually really proud of that last exit, because when at the shakeout, I was kind of scoping out the exit because they already had the flags and stuff. So a lot of people were going sort of straight up the cliff and then taking like a hard left to hit the trail. But as soon as you hit the beach, you can see the flag kind of ahead of you. So I essentially took us to this like low gradual road that got us right to the marker, and then we just basically closed it out there. And yeah, I mean, coming to, I guess Chipper yelled that we were in third place. I didn't hear
that at all. I went there blacked out. I'm watching the video and I was like, wait. I definitely don't remember hearing Trooper say anything. And so we're like, and Flitter like, are you live? And he's, yeah. We're like, what? What's going on?
It's like, are you live?
You're breathing pretty hard. Well, I had a really interesting purview because I was up and I saw you all coming on in, and there was a lot of sprint people, and then there was kind of a wave of jerseys coming in, and I saw there was 2 green, mixed teams coming. I'm like, oh, we got a battle for the last, because I had sort of been paying attention or trying to remember who I had been seeing, and I was like, oh, that is Chris and Viv, and I think it was great to see you all, like, I probably saw 50 people exit and 50 transitions, and I'll put you guys in the top 5 smooth transitions of what I saw there, but that top 3, that line that you took was definitely an advantage. Yeah, there was people that were, maybe it was a more direct route, but they were doing more rock climbing and trying to find the right rock, and you were able to pull away there, and I think that's really what secured it for you. And it's like you're in third. If you guys care, I wasn't sure if
I didn't hear
that was the goal or not, but anyway, you made it happen.
I had no idea where we were. Sometimes, like, we've done this race enough, Chipper and I, where we kind of have a sense of where we're at because we end up in no man's land kind of thing, and that certainly happened to you and me, Viv, out there for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just because I felt sluggish, I didn't feel like I was moving as crisply as I have in the past. But also that kind of wasn't my goal. My goal was just like, how could I have a really great experience with my partner, and and it became pretty clear to me during the races, actually, I'm learning a lot about this experience. And, so I was trying to be really present, and that was sort of my whole mindset going into the race. Like, how can I be super present for this? And just, whether it's a long training day or what, it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to be able to do this course together, or, it'll be fine, then be fine. So when we crossed the finish line, Aaron's like, you guys, we crossed the finish line, gave each other like a huge hug. Thanked you for being a great partner. And yeah, Aaron told us that we finished in third, which was pretty funny.
We're like, are you sure? He's like, we're going to make sure. Okay. Yeah, you guys, there you go. We're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's like, don't doubt me. I'm like, you're the one checking, it's like, what do you need?
No, I mean, I didn't, we saw Andy and Mara on the turnaround, so I was like, we at least know they're in front of us. But from there, I was like, I have no idea where we are. We're having fun. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the mentality that a lot of the racers had out there. You didn't really see a lot of jockeying. Sure, there were some people that were vying for podium spots and things like that. But yeah, it didn't dominate the field there. So yeah, well, congrats on the third place. You sort of threw a wrinkle in our second or fourth place streak we had going, Chris. But different divisions.
Just had to be onwards out.
with the prime number as well. So yeah, what race is done. Viv, you've had a couple days to think on it. How, like, in retrospect, like, how do you think about your first experience racing in the mixed division and racing with a different partner?
Yeah, honestly, didn't ever think I'd be racing in a mixed division. My dad and I have teased it a few times, but never really did it. Just stuck with Sarah. And honestly, it was great. I think because both Chris and I had great swim run basics of how our transition worked, what swimming Heather looked like. Because we had those things fixed so kind of well under our belt, we were able to kind of gel together and communicate, okay, this is what I know is going to be important for me, what's going to be important for you, what reminders are you going to need? So I think that is definitely very important. If you have raced with a long-term partner and are thinking about switching with partners, like, just know, hey, we need to figure out our swim run basic. What do you have down? What do you not have down? And just knowing that Chris had his own thing and I had my own thing, and like, we're able to figure it out. Hey, okay, your heart rate's high. Let's slow down. Did you eat? Did I eat? Did we drink water? Okay, let's drink water. So figuring out those small things definitely helps in the long run. Partnering, and again, never saw myself doing mixed at all. So I'm very glad to have partnered with Chris. It was a great time. And I'll keep saying that because it really was. It wasn't stressful at all. I wasn't worried about it, having zero expectation going in, and it was a great first and last swim run of the year. This is my first one, and obviously it's the last one of the season, but it it was awesome. I raced in a new wetsuit too, so I bought one of the ÖTILLÖ Air the day before, and I was like, well, never do anything, all right, then here we are. So, but it was well worth the investment because of how hot it was, and the only other suit that I own is an Ono X, so it was much, much better.
Would have been warm.
When I was just for a
yeah,
pasty,
for sure,
so.
for sure.
No, it was,
well,
it was a great
one
time.
thing we mentioned a lot, one thing we mentioned a lot on the show is just how important it is to be aligned on goals. And I think for us, like it was, our goal was to just like have fun out there and kind of see what happens and just kind of be open for the experience. And I think, that doesn't have to be everyone's goal. The goal could be like, oh, let's just go till we die or something, or let's try to destroy the company, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
But being aligned on goals is important, because if you were like, oh, I want to try to set a land speed record here, and I'm just trying to chill, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But Chipper, to answer your question, I mean, I really enjoyed it. And as I alluded to earlier a couple of times, I feel like I leveled up as a swim runner. I feel like I'm an experienced swim runner. I mean, Chipper and I are like grizzled old veterans at this point, right? But racing with someone else, I felt, it was ability to kind of like work on things and learn from someone else on just racecraft. So like I mentioned, like leading all the swims just gave me like a new appreciation. Not that I wasn't able to lead swims. It was just nice to have someone who's 10 years younger than me do it all the time. But I felt, I told Chipper when he had his private race report for me the other night, which was, I actually think we need to change our tactics in races, because I felt how gassed I was after some of these runs, after some of these long swims going straight into a long run, that, it just makes no sense for not to share that burden, that race, during the race. So I think, whatever race comes next, like we'll be more in the weeds and the tactics. It's like, all right, you lead the first one. Maybe we just alternate like who's leading the swims, or a little bit more tactical. I'll lead the second half swims or whatever, something like that. Just because I felt like that was an advantage. And I think the other thing, which I also alluded to, like the other level up is just like, I feel like by racing with someone else, like you can't help but learn stuff. And again, I'm sure, haven't asked them, but I'm sure if you ask Desi, Amanda, Sabina, like you name the elite swim runner who races with different partners, I'm sure they see a lot, they learn a lot from racing with different people, just like the way that people move, the way they handle their business, the way they handle their transitions. So in that respect, going in with no expectations, I was just so, as time goes by, it's been a few days, like the experience has become like really, really memorable. And something which I told Chipper too, I was like, I actually think you should race with someone else too, just so you can kind of see what it's like. And I certainly am the type of person, like, I love the sport. I want to experience the sport in all its different ways, right? So that means like racing in the mixed division. That means doing a solo swim run at some point, just to kind of like experience it in all the ways I can. And for a first mixed experience that just like came together, like literally at the shakeout the day before, to then, after the fact, have it be something that was so memorable. I mean, it's almost, talk about like the cherry on top, right? It was just like icing on the cake for what was a really fun experience.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Was that too cheesy?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think where to take it after that, but
no,
he sort of laid it down.
Yeah, so I think, one thing I'll add there too is, I think for anyone thinking about, mixing it up with different partners and stuff like that, I think one takeaway as basically just from our experience racing together, Viv, was it's really about aligning on goals, making sure that you're appropriately calibrating expectations, hopefully keeping them low. So then if you surpass them, like my only goal is to have fun, better, right?
Yeah.
Finish and have fun, right? So we met those goals, and then to think that we were moving well together and we're problem solving together and dealing with the adversity that also runs throw at you. Like the fact that we kept doing that well, as I mentioned earlier, my sort of respect for you as a swim runner, which was already super high. Like you've done worlds, so obviously you know what you're doing. But to race with you, like I get it. And I was telling Chipper, I know why she loves this sport, because she's super good at it. Of course she's super stoked on swim run, because I could just see it. The way you were swim running to me was just like emblematic of someone she gets it. She knows what's going on here. So that also was super fun to see, right? Obviously knowing you've done worlds and done a bunch of races and got the bug. to actually race with you and sort of see that firsthand was super fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid after you guys. I mean, we had a coach who signed us up 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
And I mean, we asked you guys that in the meeting, we're like, so what is this swimrun stuff? You guys are like, oh, the coolest thing ever. We're like, okay, cool. But it's just, I mean, the sheer love of the community and the racing is what you keep showing up for. And then we have to figure out, okay, I'm kind of okay at running. I'm kind of okay at swimming. Well, maybe I'll be good at both. And that just, I mean, just doing it with the people, with the great community around you is just what is just, you're like, yeah, this is it. Kind of like a little, like, I'd be like, oh, again, like, I get excited to go to race weekend and see, like, everybody. It's kind of like you come, it's like a big family reunion, come together, and then you meet new friends, and you're like, don't worry, we're going to adopt you in our group, and you're sitting at our table, and I have no idea who you are, but I've asked the same 50 questions and figure out who, like, your first niece is and your first dog. But that's what's so special about every swim run weekend that, like, we keep coming to and racing. And just seeing the new faces. I know Austin is I think typically the one that brings in the most new people. How many people raised their hand at the beginning? Like a ton.
Oh my God, it was a ton. Yeah, Lars did his usual, like, how many people are doing this for the first time? And it was a ton of hands. It's like, how many people have done every single one? And it wasn't as many people hand up for sure. But yeah, it was super great. And yeah, I think we have to give a shout out. Chipper, I mean, you saw this more firsthand, but like all the work that Lars, Aaron, the crew was doing out there. There was like extra aid stations from years past. So it would just be like a cooler, just like in the middle of some of these long runs, just in case you need it. I thought like the attention to detail on that stuff was top marks. And, you know, again, you know, we've done how many either Swimrun USA, Odyssey, or ÖTILLÖ USA races over the years. I mean, it hasn't been one where it's been a miss. They've all just nailed it on sort of the race logistics stuff. And to have the voice of Swimrun at the end, you know, Mark Fanonger.
Perhaps Chris.
Had Ben.
Yeah.
Wow. Any further words or insights you two want to share with everyone? I think we covered a lot, and it seems if anyone's on the fence about maybe mixing it up with their partner or trying a different experience, we have 2 very positive reviews here from team the Low Tide Monkeyz.
Yeah. That's another funny story, because once we agreed, it was the next thing, we got to come up with a good team name.
First order of business, team name.
Well, and
who's leading the swims and then team name.
And when Sarah world with Anna, they were Mountain Monkey Queen, which is Anna and Paige's name, are like broken up. So Sarah's, if we were a partner with anybody, you have to put Monkey in the name. And so it just seemed patched like a ours.
Yeah. And the Low Tide Monkeyz were born.
Ta-da.
With a Z.
Yeah, hopefully.
It was great.
No, I mean, we could do a partner swaps, then definitely recommend it, because it'll, I mean, like Teresa said, it offered a new perspective on racing and how people race too. But make sure you're actually talking to your partner and making sure your goals are the same, because you're racing with somebody who's, I'm going to book it, and you're not. You're like, oh man, this is miserable. And swimrun is supposed to be fun, so don't be miserable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said.
Indeed.
Well said.
Indeed.
Well, I think on that, Viv, thanks for taking good care of Chris and not running him ragged out there in Pacebin Park. But also thanks for joining us and sharing your experience in the mixed division for the first time and joining up. And, you know, also with racing with the Low Tide Boy, you automatically have a podcast episode to do after. So thanks for that.
Yeah, of course. I know. I think I'm probably pacing with Marcus. She'd be on the most Low Tide Boyz episode at this point. So.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's been great, guys. I love seeing you guys, and I mean, if you're in Louisiana, let me know.
Will do. Well, everyone, this is our last race report of the year. There's no more races in the U.S. I think Hella's Frostbite Swimrun is still happening next month or something.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., the swimrun season's over. So recover, get healthy, get strong, keep swimming, number one. And yeah, we'll see you out at the races in 2025.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Check out our website, lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel.
Of course, yes.
In the morning,